In this movie, we're going to look at primary keys and very briefly at indexes. If we look at our fruit database and we select the data from our fruits table, we'll notice there are only two columns in the fruits table. If we were to add a new row which also had the name apple in it, then we would find that there would be two essentially identical entries into that table. If we had two apples of the same size, then there would be no way of telling one row from another. A good way to make sure that all of the entries in our database are easily able to be differentiated is to use a primary key. A primary key is a number, usually a number, that allows us to distinguish each row from another row, regardless of whether any other columns are the same or not. We can set up a primary key when we go to create a table. Let's create a new table and we'll call it people. And we're going to create a primary key called person ID. We're going to make that a small int. And we should specify that our primary key be not null, which means it doesn't allow null values. And we use a special keyword here called auto increment. What auto increment does is that it fills in the values for us without us having to worry about them. Then we're going to have a name field, going to be 20 wide, and we're going to make that not null as well. Finally, we're going to set up the primary key. The way we do that is to use the primary key phrase there, and then within a pair of brackets we type the name of the column that we wish to use as a primary key. We can only have one primary key per table. Now our table's been created, and if we have a look at our table, we can see that in the key column, the word PRI for primary has been listed, so that's been flagged as the primary key. Let's insert some values into the people table. We're going to specify that we only want to insert values into name, the name column, and then we're going to put a number of different values, just individual values because we're only filling in one column, but we need to keep them separated by, each of them should be surrounded by brackets and separated by commas. I'm going to put them on different rows as well, just to make it obvious that we're entering separate rows. There's 3 rows of people there, and we can enter these values. And now if we have a look at the data in the people table, we can see that the auto increment has added automatically a set of numbers to the person ID column, which is our primary key. This is a very useful way of ensuring that each of our rows has a unique identity. There's also a property called index, which can be applied to one or more columns, and it is a way of speeding up queries that we're going to create later on in this title on our database. I won't go into everything that an index does because it's a lot of information that you need to know in order to fully understand what indexes are about that we haven't covered yet. However, The syntax for adding an index is as simple as alter table, which we found before, alter table people, put the rest of the sentence on a different line, add index. Then you specify the column or columns that you want to make into an index. As we can see, that index has been added to the column. As I said before, don't worry too much about what the indexes are. It's important though because this is part of creating tables and setting up the structures for our data. We're going to see how this comes into play in later chapters. In our next movie, I'm going to quickly recap all the new syntax that you've just learnt in this chapter.